Hello and welcome to Live at Productronica, day 3 at the show. It's been a remarkably busy show. I think it raised or exceeded everybody's expectations. We've got roughly 50 to 60% of the normal visitor traffic that you would get at a regular Productronica. But some great innovations, and after 3 days of live interviews and 3 days of, or 6 panel discussions, should I say, we're coming to the final Live at Productronica for this week. I've got some remarkable guests coming in, and we'll be finishing today with a roundup with our roving reporter Keith Bryant. But to get started, I'm going to be joined by Stan Farnsworth, who's the Director of Marketing for Novocentrix. Nice to see you, Stan.
Hi, Trevor. Great to see you as well.
Yeah, so you're joining us from sunny California, are you?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas.
Also sunny, but definitely not Munich. I very much look forward to being able to get back and involved personally there again.
Right. Okay. Well, at least Novocentrix was represented here by a couple of people. There's a couple of presentations talking about the remarkable photonic soldering technology that you have. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, in detail, about how the pulse forge system works for the benefit of our viewers.
Sure. Thanks, Trevor. We are in the process right now of introducing our pulse forge soldering tools to the EMS SMT market.
I can't hear.
Flexible, hybrid, and printed electronics. Think additive manufacturing, processing conductive inks. But we are now deploying this technology to flow and reflow solder. It uses flash lamps. It's very quick. We can reflow SAC 305 solder in a second or less. It does not need to be preheated in a multi-zone oven. The process can also be used with very, very novel substrates such as polymer substrates, paper, different types of textiles. I know it seems completely crazy to be able to reflow solder on those kinds of materials, but because of the extremely fast time scale, the pulse forge tools are actually able to do that, achieve low voids, achieve the right fillets, achieve the right intermetallic layer structuring. And the really exciting piece about all this is that they use dramatically less energy than a traditional reflow oven. Case studies that we've done, apples to apples comparison, the pulse forge tools are only using about 15% of the energy that a traditional convective radiative IR reflow oven would use.
That's incredible, and it actually plays into one of the central themes here this week, which is sustainability and how to reduce and manage your energy better. Now, one of the things you mentioned was the different substrates. I believe one of the characteristics of the Novocentrix system is that it has, because it's light related, it can't be just a standard green FR4 board. It has to be white. Is that correct?
So that can play a role in different kinds of circumstances. A regular green FR4 board may be okay. In some cases, we tell our partners to work with a solder mask that may be white or some other color to help accentuate the absorption differences between the materials. It's important to note that even though this is a light-based process, it does not need to be line of sight. So the thermal energy can still move dimensionally underneath BGAs, for example, underneath different types of die sizes to get good solder wetting and good solder flow under those areas.
Right, right. Now you mentioned the intermetallic and the structure of the solder joints. Is that true that there's no change in the integrity of the solder joint using this technology?
That's right. That's what we've seen with the labs we've validated this with and our customers as well. A large part of this is because of the tremendous tunability of the PulseForge tools. So certain kinds of applications prefer different kinds of intermetallic formation. Certain kinds of applications prefer different kinds of solders even.
Mm-hmm.
Different types of SAC 305 or maybe even different alloys altogether. The tools can very quickly digitally be tuned to optimize for any particular circumstance.
That's great. So I know this technology has attracted a lot of people, and you're doing some really exciting things with a number of partners. Can you talk about some of these?
Sure. Of course, I cannot talk about details of partner names, but I can say that the three main areas of application that our customers are using these tools for, one of them is in the uh, uh, sort of AR, VR arena, being able to put different types of devices, solder directly onto to plastic or lens materials,
Really?
which is very shocking to be able to do that. And again, I know it sounds really crazy, but that's actually what's happening. A second area is in different types of medical devices. So think of the different types of medical skin patches,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that might be mounted on a shoulder or back somewhere on the person. And those kinds of directly mountable materials are not very happy going through a reflow oven. So our customers are able to use our tools to solder directly onto those very special substrates. And in fact, working through those applications, it turns out that that's a great application for another very unusual property of the PulseForge tools, which is the ability to solder coin cells directly onto those materials as well, without damaging any of the electrolytes or membrane structures inside the battery. So being able to solder a battery directly to these unusual polymers and doing it in a second
Wow.
is quite remarkable. The third major application area is in automotive. So there's increasing interest in very creative automotive interiors, very innovative user, passenger, occupant interfaces. And so those kinds of displays, lighting, infotainment, vehicle information displays, increasingly are looking to fit into different kinds of spaces and curves and places in the vehicle, requiring novel use of materials. And those customers also very much appreciate the use of the tools to decarbonize the manufacturing supply chain for that electronics because of the very low energy use that's required.
That's incredible. It's so versatile. It's not just a revolutionary technology, but it's so versatile. It's incredible. I believe that you're going to be showing a live version of this at the upcoming Apex exhibition in San Diego. So tell us a little bit about that. You're going to be partnering with Hanwha Techwin, I believe. Tell us what's going to happen there.
We are very excited at this opportunity to work with Hanwha Techwin in their Center of Excellence in Orange County, California. We will have one of these PulseForge tools at our booth at IPC Apex in San Diego at the end of January. But we've also partnered with Hanwha Techwin to put one of our inline production soldering tools inline operating in their booth space with equipment from their ecosystem, a stencil printer, pick and place, shuttles, actually processing samples, materials on novel substrates right there at the show. And if you haven't seen it, you won't believe it, because the entire line is only around 20 feet long. The PulseForge oven itself, the PulseForge curing tool, it's not really an oven. The PulseForge soldering tool is only about 8 feet long, and it
Wow.
can replace the functionality of a reflow oven much longer than that for these kinds of applications.
Yeah.
And so we'll have an operating EMS production line in the Hanwha booth at IPC Apex in San Diego in January.
That is super exciting, you know. Now I'll be interested to see if the Hanwha printers and pick and place systems can keep up with a photonic soldering system.
Well, they're pretty fast.
Yeah.
Some of their new lines, particularly for the pick and place, are pretty impressive. So I encourage folks to get out to San Diego and see this happen in real life.
Absolutely. Okay. Stan, I want to thank you for coming in and joining us today and telling us about some of the really revolutionary work that's happening with Novacentrics. Coming up
Thank you,
after
Trevor.
the
Look forward
break.
to meeting you again
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Coming up after the break, we're going to be joining Michael Ford, who's coming in to tell us some of the leading edge stuff that's happening in the world of software. And welcome back. So I'm now joined by Michael Ford from Aegis Corporation, who's joining us from sunny England. Hello, Michael. Nice to see you.
Sunny South Wales, or it's dark actually
Oh,
outside, but
sunny
there we are.
Wales, of course. I forgot to differentiate there. Um, sure. So tell us what's happening. Give us an update of what's happening with MES software and with Aegis and that type of thing, because there's a lot of challenges out there with COVID and supply chain issues that are really affecting things. So what is happening?
It's incredible, actually. I mean, the easier question would be what is not happening, because it just seems as if everything is changing at once. And you turn around and there's a whole new challenge. Is it environmental? Is it energy? Is it an acquisition? Some supply chain problem? I mean, we're just going on and on and on with these kinds of changes. And of course, change for manufacturing is kind of a good thing because it brings opportunity, but it's also something that normally is resisted because people don't like variation to creep into
Yeah.
manufacturing. So, what has been happening in the world of software? Is this just another challenge or is it another opportunity? And so, people are thinking about this. And we see people, for example, in the IPC CFX committee, machine vendors saying that now between 80 and 90% of people are ordering the CFX interface and the Hermes interface
Hmm.
as they're ordering new equipment. And of course, we see a huge increase in the ordering of new equipment right now as manufacturers, seize the opportunities. And so you can tell that people have this in the back of their minds. Unfortunately, when push comes to shove, and you've got to get a factory up and running in a very short time, the last thing normally to be considered is, should we revolutionize our Industry 4.0 profile? And so, I would categorize there are a lot of companies who have that sense that are a little bit reluctant. But then you have a lot of newcomers. I mean, the e-mobility revolution, where we have a lot of new players in the market for batteries, for cars, for all kinds of things. They kind of accept that you would have to have Industry 4.0. And they just couldn't imagine creating something new in these days that did not have the latest software and all of the latest things connected. And one of the key areas of this that we see is the link of ERP and MES,
Yep.
because these two tools are kind of doing similar jobs. If you think about it, what they're doing planning, they're looking at materials, allocating production, but they're both doing it in different ways. MES very much, real time on the shop floor, whereas ERP is controlling the whole factory delivery to the customer.
Mhm.
But we need to be agile, so we need to link these things together, and people are beginning to really understand that now. The Microsoft new API set that they've put out is becoming very popular, and the other things that are changing with people moving around, we see a lot of cross fertilization of ideas. So where people are enjoying the use of a tool in a certain production environment, they maybe join another manufacturing company and they say, wow, you're not using this company. Okay, we need to be catching up. And so we see these ideas being fertilized around to different companies, and that just builds the momentum. It's like a positive spiral building where people are now looking for, okay, we need to get to this next level and address the challenges, convert those problems into opportunities.
Yeah, well, I certainly think it's coming. I mean, if you look just around the show floor here this week, there's plenty of evidence of companies looking very seriously at all sorts of automation and systems to turn their factories into smart factories, really, essentially. Um, but you're rightly to say that there's been multiple challenges facing us, you know, apart from COVID and supply chain and everything else. We've also got a big drive towards sustainability. And there must be a role, surely, that the software systems and control systems play in helping us to improve that.
Very much so. Energy is one of the key things, and the kind
Sorry, I
of
have
role that I
difficulty
have.
hearing you. Uh,
Okay.
Maybe it's our team, I think.
Energy is one of the key things, and my role within Aegis is to look at, not what's coming today or tomorrow, but what's coming next week, next month, next year, etc.
I can't
So
hear him.
with the energy management, we've been, for example, creating messages within the CFX family so that we can be able to, for example, command machines to go into a low power mode. So the machines declare what modes they support. And so if we
Yeah.
see a break in production due to whatever reason, then we can automatically let the machines know you can now go into low power mode. But when it's time to wake up, because it takes time for them to wake up, we give them a heads up. Okay, it's time to wake up and prepare yourselves for the next
Yep.
product coming along. So, we're very much seeing that as creating the opportunity to reduce the power consumption, but also at the same time measuring energy profiles and then being able to map that to the cost of energy profiles. So, for example, products that take a lot of power and energy to be created could be scheduled at a time which is more convenient for the power companies. They reduce their tariffs, and then, okay, everything becomes a lot easier. It's not just about reducing the cost, but it's also about reducing the stress that we put on the energy system.
Right.
If the sun goes in and the wind goes away, okay, it's going to be more difficult to find that power.
Right. Okay. No, I mean that's really interesting, and it's very important topic at the moment. I want to turn my attention to security around these smart factory systems, though, because that is definitely a concern. Um, I know that you're working on certain initiatives at the moment with IPC. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect from security systems going forward?
Yeah, this is going to be a big theme of the eSmart Factory event that we've got coming up, where we realize that if you divide the world in half, half of the people are good in the good half, and half of the people are in the bad half. So everything that we make, we've got to make sure that it's good for the use of the good half, but difficult to abuse by the others.
Right.
So, looking at things in smart manufacturing, we deal with the transfer of data, like from design through manufacturing. And for many years, we use Gerber and a load of other files, and it's been fine. We also look at traceability, gathering of that data and being able to utilize it and create value from it. That's fine. But the more and more smart we become, the more risk we create through that sharing of data. And so what we've really looked at is how do we address this threat of exposure of IP? For example, there can be complex attacks. There's one case where the design data was intercepted for a circuit board for a large, let's say, microcomputer. And cloned boards were actually made because they had the copy of the design, they had the bill of materials. And what these guys did was, after they'd stolen the design data, they altered it so that it included a new chip. And they also adjusted the BOM so it adjusted, brought in a new piece of material.
Right.
And so they also were able to hack into the company to find out the shipping schedules for those boards. And so then they were able to intercept the boards as they were en route from one place to an assembly house. So they substituted the boards. But of course, the serial numbers also needed to be changed. And so then they had to hack into the traceability database to adjust the serial numbers of the boards that have been made and substitute them with the counterfeit ones. So this is a very complex attack. But how it resulted is that they were able to completely get round the security of the product that had been made, which was a microcomputer. And they were able to gather data from that without anybody detecting it, without anybody knowing. Now, that could have been a hack into the system of a car and enabled remote control, or an aerospace device, which could enable it to be taken over. So we've got to be extremely careful now, not only about how we transfer information, but how we share information. So the transfer side, for example, design through manufacturing, we're creating something between the 2581 standard and the CFX standard to allow the transfer of design data securely between the design and manufacturing and even down to the machine levels, so that people can use the data in a secure way. They don't even need to have the whole data, just a small section of the data that they need to know of can be transferred, so that you have this high level. So that is the transfer of information between secure locations like design and
Right.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
On the other side, you see the traceability then. And everybody today is shouting that we need to share traceability data. OEMs want to know from their EMS partners, okay, prove to me that everything is fine for this product. I want to see the provenance. But the the EMS, they don't want to share that data because this is my private data. And so therefore, we also see the way forward as being able to share data in a way that doesn't compromise privacy.
Right. Well, it's not surprising. I mean, the OEMs have been screaming for more visibility, more data for a long time. But the EMS companies, as you rightly point out, are not keen to share that because the OEMs will just use it as a stick to beat them over the head to say,
Yeah, well, this is it.
why,
This is it.
why can't you do it better? Final
Yeah,
question, Michael, and that is. We touched on the supply chain earlier in the conversation. What can software do? What can the systems do to help to alleviate the problems we're having with the supply chain?
Well, it depends on what the problems are. And they start, I guess, with the ability of knowing and being able to order things. So we see software these days where it's quite clever that you can go searching around online from different distributors and being able to source things and see live pricing. So that area has completely revolutionized the old MRP type work that we used to do. But then, of course, there's the problem of where materials have been overordered by some. And we're going to see this in the next year, I think, where people are sitting on a ton of materials right now. They couldn't make the products they intended because there were still shortages. But that didn't stop them stockpiling all the other materials. And as time goes on, product life cycles continue and they end up with a lot of obsolete material. But what do you do with that obsolete material? How can you prove that you bought that legitimately and you can then sell that back into the supply chain legitimately? And you're kind of catching a falling knife there because as people ramp up production of components, people suddenly decide, okay, I can't sit on this anymore. I've got to get rid of it. I need to sell it, but I need to provide those proofs.
Right.
And so this goes back to, again, traceability and being able to prove that what you've had, you have looked after it. The problem is, again, back to this privacy issue. And how do you share all of the data that you've got related to this? You don't want to share where you bought it from, how much you paid, because you might be selling it for a profit. There are certain things you want to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the examples is, maybe you went through it at Productronica, a kind of COVID pass. So, for example, if you go to a trade show or even if you go into a restaurant or bar, you as an individual are asked, are you able to go? Have you been tested? Show me your ID. And you end up sharing a lot of information about yourself, maybe your passport and your date of birth and all the rest of it. And that's your private information. I don't want people to know that. They could copy it and do
It's
all kinds of
unbelievable.
things.
Yeah. You should see some of the security they've had around Productronica to keep everybody safe, you've got to not only be obviously show your vaccination information, but you've got to show IDs and everything just to get into the show every day, which has made it very congested in the front entrance to get in. And as we were building up the show at the beginning, a couple of us went over to the local Five Guys restaurant to get a hamburger. We went in there, not only had we to show our COVID pass, but we had to download the Five Guys app and fill in a form and all sorts of things that really we shouldn't be giving away, all in the name of COVID, which was quite annoying.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, who knows how many spam emails you're going to get after sharing all of that information.
I know.
But you know, there is a way to stop that, and it's called verifiable credentials. And this is something we're looking into applying to manufacturing. Yeah. Because, you know, the fact that you've had double vaccination, maybe you've had a booster, maybe you had COVID recently and are fully recovered, you don't want to go into those details. But there is a body, a trusted body for vaccination. It's the EU government. And there are ways of sending them facts to say, for example, I've had the jab, I've had, you know, this happened to me, and it's digitally signed because it comes from an authorized place where you've been treated. That information is stored in a secure location. And then when you go into your bar or go into the show, instead of having to disclose everything, you just need to say, look, I'm me, which is maybe a QR code in the case of the health thing. Or
so they only get the information they need.
Yeah, just you, and it asks the question, am I eligible to enter? And you get the question back, yes or no. Yeah. So it didn't divulge your age or your vaccine status or anything like that. So it therefore allows people to understand the provenance of you or the provenance of products, let's say, and materials throughout the supply chain without the necessity of being able to open up and show the whole kimono of traceability data. Okay. So we're now thinking within the IPC of creating a set of verifiable credentials that would allow people to have access to the information that they need, but without the disclosure of any private IP at all. So not sharing traceability information, but simply sharing the facts in a way that provides the assurances without opening up and losing information.
Absolutely. Well, honestly, I'm sure it's going to evolve over the coming months, and we're going to hear a lot more of it at eSmart Factory on December 1st and 2nd. So we'll be looking forward to that. But for now, Michael, I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah, look forward to that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Coming up after the break, we're going to have a show roundup with our roving reporter, Keith Bryant.
SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your thermal challenges.
And welcome back. I'm delighted to be joined by Keith Bryant. Good to see you, Keith.
Yeah, it's good to still be able to walk around and be here, I guess, after 3 days and a lot of months of not practicing it.
Well, absolutely. You know, these hard floors take it out of you. I'm actually wearing the comfortable shoes today.
But you know, there's been quite a lot to see here. There's been a lot of visitors. There's a lot of very happy exhibitors. I bumped into Stefan from the organizers about half an hour ago, and you know, apart from the issues of coming in where you have to check everything from everybody, which is, you know, that's a local government issue. There's nothing the guys here can do about it. Yeah. You know, the rules changed a few days ago, and they had to change their their approach completely. But you know, once you get in here, it's been good. Everybody seems happy. There's been new stuff that people have had. So yeah, it's been a small and I guess mostly European show, but it's been good.
Yeah. So what have been your main takeaways in terms of new products, technologies that you've seen on the floor this week?
Well, my favorite is the Young Neptune with the ability to measure the thickness of conformal coating, because you know, that's been a holy grail in the industry for like 25 years.
Yep.
You know, the answer to the question was always, yeah, you've got to microsection the board, and that's just, you know, destructive testing, and it takes a long time. Whereas now you've got an inline system where you can actually control the process.
Right, yeah. I think as a general theme, one of the things I've noticed this week is quite a lot of companies are moving towards the semiconductor business. There's a lot of them talking about the sub-5 micron stuff. And mostly the inspection companies, of course, but some of the other production companies too, moving into that space.
Yeah, I had a chat on my show earlier with a gentleman from Finetech, and you know, they're very much getting into working with their customers at the research area for die bonding, so that they can produce the production equipment to do what they need to do in a couple of years' time, rather than getting blindsided when something new appears. Right. And you know, the area between PCBA and semiconductor has been blurring for a while with, you know, direct chip on board, and now we're getting dies actually bonded onto circuit boards, and you know, everything getting smaller and smaller, and system in package, and all the other stuff. So yeah, it's becoming a gray area, and it's putting a lot of demands on the inspection stuff, both AOI and X-ray.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I quite rightly said earlier in some interviews, if you take out your iPhone and look at the back of it, it's literally 8 large packages surrounded by very few discrete components. And this seems to be a trend that's coming in the industry. Apple are now producing their own M1, M2 chips. Bosch have just announced that they are building their fab, but it's for their own products, which presumably they can get better performance out of these products rather than taking an off-the-shelf Intel chip and trying to manipulate it to do what they need it to do.
Yeah, and several people now are getting a little bit worried about IP as well. You know, when you're having to go out to a third-party fab, then effectively, you know, they have everything. Yeah. You know, and as the world is a continually changing place, and we've had the US versus China battles, I think people are getting a little bit concerned now, and they want to have basically more control over the key things.
Yeah, that was another sentiment that was very universal here this week, and that was that the supply chains need to get shorter. It's not just a case of reshoring because it's a nice thing to do. We need that to spread the risk, first of all, and to be more environmentally friendly, to be more sustainable.
Yeah, and also people are looking more to build partnerships with their suppliers as well, just to basically lock in that supply chain. And you know, if you can do it with somebody who's in the same time zone and who speaks the same language, then it is so much easier and so much slicker. And yeah, when we see all the problems of stuff trying to be shipped around the world at the moment, you know, the gentleman from Ventec on your on your panel, you know, was saying, you know, how much more it costs just to ship a 20-foot container now, and we're talking like a factor of 18 times more. Yeah. And you know, when you're shipping something that's not a hugely expensive part of the process, then yeah, that starts to have a huge effect. Yeah. Not to mention the time that it still takes to do it. So yeah, I think, as you say, supply chains are going to get shorter, and more OEMs are going to start trying to get control of their supply chain again. Whereas before, you know, the early days when everything moved to China, everybody was looking for the lowest price, and it was all, you know, we'll close down our ability to manufacture boards, our ability to assemble boards, and we'll just throw it all over there because we can save so much money. I think those days have gone now.
Yeah. So, I mean, how is the industry going to then navigate all this change that's coming in? You know, it's like I was talking with Michael earlier. You know, there's so many parameters changing at one time here. You know, we've got the supply chain issues, we've got the COVID issues, we've got new technologies like EV and 5G and everything else coming down the pipe. There's just so many moving parts.
The short answer, Trevor, and you're seeing it already all over the place, is acquisition. Yeah. If you've got OEMs with deep pockets, they're shoring up the people that they need to be working with simply by putting their name over the door.
Right. That's a very, a very astute observation and a very true one. But you're right, because they don't have the time to sort of learn these new technologies. The best thing to do is just acquire them.
Oh, of course, and a lot of them, there's proprietary stuff that's in there. There's IP and everything. So, the short answer is, if you can afford it, buy it.
Yeah.
And you're going to see more and more of that going on.
Yeah.
If you look at the contract manufacturers, there's a lot of acquisition happening there globally.
Yeah.
There are global companies who realize that aerospace and defense is going to be a growing area in Europe. And they can't get in here because they don't know the customers, they don't have the contacts. So they're just taking a company that does and basically, adding them as the layer above.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see more and more of that over the next few years.
I mean, electronics is a no-brainer. It's just growing exponentially by application. And of course, all of these private equity guys and everything else are all, desperate to get a piece of the puzzle.
Oh yeah, there's I'm sure at that level there's a lot of money to be made, but also in some ways for us it's good because it shores up what we need in terms of a manufacturing base which is close to us, which will service the needs of what we want.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of issues with 5G coming from China and people worrying about IP and can they hack into my iPhone and listen to all my calls and all of this kind of stuff. And if it's coming out of Europe, nobody's going to even ask that question.
It's true. It's very true. Anyway, it's been a wonderful week. I want to thank you for all your input and helping us record all these shows and videos this week. So thank you for joining us. Safe travels home. And thank you to our audience this week. We hope you enjoyed the programming we brought here. We brought to you from Munich. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event, which is in December 1st and 2nd. It's going to be a virtual one, eSmart Factory. So we look forward to that in a couple of weeks. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.
SMT Thermal Discoveries are the experts in thermal processes from -50 degrees Celsius up to 450 degrees Celsius. With highly stable reflow soldering systems, vacuum soldering to reduce voiding in solder joints, whether you need temperature treatment systems with standard equipment or flexible solutions, SMT Thermal Discoveries have the machine to your thermal. For micro dispensing, there is one product line that is proven and trusted by manufacturers in semiconductor packaging, electronics assembly, medical device and electromechanical assembly the world over. DL Technology, superior pumps and needles for the finer things in life.